Yes, grown man, G-I-N-C. Yeah, baby. You're not dreaming. Let's ride. I'm a cute, yeah, I'ma do it big. Show love, so cute. Love, high, cute. Everybody.
All right, everyone. Good afternoon and happy Friday. So, for those of you that just tuned in, you definitely heard the intro music. I'm a Q, and you already know our speaker is a Q dog. So, shout out to all the Qs out there. My name is Noemi Pavone, and I am your host of live leadership chat right here at the Pavone Firm. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, make sure you subscribe to our channel. So, today we have a incredibly powerful, dynamic co-host that we are featuring today, and he's going to help us dig through this very common case study. Y'all ready to meet him? Y'all give it up for Terrence Mitchell. So excited that you have joined me. Thank you so much for. I know you have an incredibly busy schedule, and it's the end of the week before vacation and you're here. So thank you so much, Terrence, for joining us.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And hello, everyone. And thank you guys for taking the time to join us. Thank you, Noemi and the Pavone firm. I'm definitely looking forward to connecting again and really talking about how we can make education that much better. So, hello,
That's
everyone.
right. That's right. Thank you, Terrence. All right. So here's the deal. Like we begin every single live leadership chat, we always just kind of like to get to who the speaker is, a little behind the scenes, behind their title. So just a couple of cool facts about Terrence. One, he loves writing and public speaking. So drop some love in the chats if you are in here for Terrence. You can drop a heart, a smiley face, a purple heart for the Qs. Cool fact number two, I think this is more aligned also with that first fact, is you developed a book called Letters to Our Fathers, a collection of heartfelt letters from sons to their fathers. Terrence, talk a little bit about that because that is so incredibly special and
Yeah,
unique.
absolutely. So, one of the things that I always lean on as it relates to fatherhood is my thoughts and the relationship opportunity that I could have had with my father. And so, I always tell people, I go back and forth around my thoughts with it. But I always tell people that my dad could have been a great father if he wanted to. And so, but he made a concerted effort and a committed choice not to. And I think
Mm,
that when we think about fatherhood and the absence of fathers, it is fear. It is the choice to not be available and to be present. And so I wanted to allow my students an opportunity to share their voice. And so we had them write letters to their father and put it in a book. And really not only just letters of pain that many of our students face, but also letters of adulation and praise and um, how they felt empowered in many instances. And so this collection just really allows students to speak to that. And what I oftentimes think is that we have young men who we ask them to minimize their voice,
yeah.
minimize their hearts and their passion and their compassion. And so I wanted this to be an opportunity when you are with me that manhood embodies so many different things, and it truly embodies being a great man, a great father, a loyal man, a loyal and present father, and just a loving person and a kindred spirit. And so, I just wanted to make sure that they have a voice for that. And some of them reach out to me to this day, and ask, can I share that letter with them and share the book with them?
Wow.
Powerful piece, absolutely.
Terrence, well, congratulations on one having the forethought, the heart, the passion to write that book and compile all those stories together, and also just to so authentically even share your story in this moment, publicly for others to hear that. And I know that in you doing that, it's clear that you're giving permission for others to be able to tell their truths, tell their stories. So, man, shout out to you, brother. I'm so proud of you. And by the way, Terrence and I, we went to Columbia University together as we were preparing to become principals uh, at Teachers College, so Spanola. So shout out to our entire cohort as well. I don't know if any of them are in here. So also you are a Morehouse College alum.
Absolutely.
So although you are in Cleveland, Ohio, Atlanta, tell us a little bit about your roots with Atlanta.
Yeah. So I had a lot of family in South Georgia. So my great grandmother and my grandmother all have siblings and cousins who are born in Georgia. We spent a lot of summers there, and so if you think about a kid being able to go back south to visit family and really start to be on that southern drawl and that southern lifestyle, really starting to see where their humble beginnings were and the land that they lived on that didn't necessarily was owned by them, and so really just seeing the humble beginnings. And oftentimes we are oftentimes afraid to run back to the things that pushed us away. And so I know my great grandmother had no aspirations to be back in Georgia, but I always felt that it was very huge for me to get back, connect with our families, um, further expand on the name and our and the culture and the things that we've built in Georgia as well. And so, Georgia is truly home. And so, yeah, I attended Morehouse College. Morehouse, um, probably one of the best experiences of my life, not only for the academic experience, but to really see what Black manhood, the diversity of Black manhood, and there's no place in the world uh, that has a school that is dedicated for the educational uplift of Black men. And
Wow.
so, from the buildings to the gymnasiums to the curriculum to the leaders and the educators, it was unmatched and it was unlike anything that I've ever experienced. Some of my closest and dearest friends to this day. I have a Spelman sister to this day who is just a huge part of my life as well. And so we really had an opportunity for those 4 years to be in an incubator of just Black excellence. And these are some of the people that I see now who are shaping this country, who are doing some amazing things. Sean, um, Sean King, Bakari Sellers, just to name a few of people who were in class with us as well. And so those are some really cool. John David Washington, and he's done some great things, in Black plans, some of the films that he's done. And so, oh man, just to be among those people as a young man, to grow and develop with those guys, really speaks to the trajectory that I think that every young man can be on as well.
That's powerful, powerful. And Terrence, you're leading, is your school all boys as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an all boys school. So I came back to Cleveland specifically for this experience.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow.
specific-
Y'all give it up for Terrence. Show him some love. And by the way, Terrence, Jules, is that your mom?
that's my mom. Yes, that's my.
Oh, go ahead and shout her out. Give her flowers.
Hey, mom, how are you?
So sweet, so sweet. All right, so let's go ahead and move on here. So we have this case study, parents, where you know schools, particularly in the season, in the pandemic, where a lot of schools had to pretty much shift the way they have been doing instruction. And one of the topics, one of the things that are not spoken about as much, and a lot of schools are coming up against lawsuits in this area, and it's really around serving students with special needs. And so I wanted to take a moment and read the case study here so that our audience can just to give some context to this. And then Terrence and I, for all of you viewing this, Terrence and I are going to dig through this and unpack this case study. We're going to talk about the considerations, the things that we need to be thinking about and wondering before we start to attack this case study. Short-term goal, like what needs to happen more immediately, what needs to happen more long-term goal, and then an action plan. Right? We're going to walk you through an action plan, but also unpack the intended and unintended consequences. Terrence, you already know where we got this from. 4001. when we say 4001, if you've been through our principal prep program, then you know exactly what 4001 means. It's a course that we had that was all grounded in case studies. So here's a case study. An irate parent, and this is by a principal, an irate parent of one of our students with special needs recently shared with us that our school has not been in compliance of their child's IEP minutes. Our school has been virtual since the beginning of the year. After doing some research, their child has not been pulled out all year for the minutes of support that they should receive in mathematics. We got the ball, and the parent is planning to go to the media this week and accusing our school of discriminating against their child with special needs and has threatened to file this lawsuit. The teacher overseeing the child's caseload quit last week.
Hmm.
How should I, as a school principal, approach this? So, Terrence, as before we start digging into kind of the action plan, what are some of the things that come to your mind first? I'm wondering some considerations that you think we should all be thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the couple of things, is the acknowledgement piece. Are we taking into account that we are acknowledging and literally hearing the concerns that the parent is stating? So oftentimes, as we are listening to respond. But in this case, one of my wonderings is, are we listening to receive? Are we conscious of the concerns, no matter how far we may consider them extreme or how frustrated we may be? In this instance, first and foremost, let us listen to receive. The second thing is where is our opportunities to ensure that there is accountable measures. So what are my roles and the opportunities that I've had to continue to think about how am I making sure that there is an opportune time to make sure that all educators are accountable, and then so where can I think about myself dropping the ball here. The other side of that is when we think about terms like discrimination and inequity, you know, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And so those are things and just language and vocabulary that we should be thinking about. What are some of the terms that we hear her speak of? And so that as well. We also want to think about as before we unpack it is where's our compliance and where are our opportunities for adjustments. And so we know that IEPs are written for in-person learning. And so if we are thinking about this virtual experience, um, what are the opportunities for adjustments that we've made in a virtual space? And where is that
Yeah.
articulation thing? So those are things that, before we think about the response, those are the things that, just resonate with me right away.
Yeah. So I love that you said that, and I kind of want to address the points that you said and add on and like give some rationale and us discourse on it. So you mentioned one of the very first things is listening, right? Positioning yourself to be the listener in this case. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. This is not to become defensive, right? Or to start excusing and like this is a really um, it's a real situation. It is a serious situation. I think in listening, you mentioned like the acknowledgement piece as well. And the acknowledgement piece is also about acknowledging what you heard the other person say, walk in their shoes, not in just the parent's shoes, right? But also walk in that student's shoes as well,
Mhm.
right? And then I would also start thinking about even though the teacher that was serving, over this child's case study, also attempting to walk in their shoes, right?
Mhm.
There's a reason why that person left, right? And there
Absolutely.
might be some questions that I need to be asking. So it's more of like this listening, reflective position that you
Yeah.
initially need to be taking. And I'm not talking about listening and reflecting for like 5 days. Like this is actually a pretty urgent
Mhm.
matter that needs to be addressed immediately, but it does need to happen. So the listening, the acknowledgement needs to happen pretty soon. I also think that acknowledgement, there needs to be an acknowledgement of what your true belief is,
Mhm.
right? Like, do you really believe that uh, all kids in your building are you are truly in action in everything that you do? Do you really believe that every child in your school deserves an excellent education, right? And if you do believe that, then like we need to be able to acknowledge your child that we fell short
Hmm.
with serving your child in that way. So let's unpack this a little bit. Also, oh, let me also just add to some of the things you said. I love that you wanted to like accountability measures, right? Like what are our current systems in place where we may have fallen short? Communication with stakeholders as well is something that I would begin to consider. Who are all the people involved in this that I need to be thinking about and approaching? So the yeah. So let's go into action planning. Like, is can I would love to just hear like where you would begin with this all, and just take it from there.
Yep, absolutely. So first and foremost, my communication would be directed to the parent, and the first thing is to acknowledge um, that as the leader of our school building, that this responsibility, first and foremost, falls on my shoulders. The responsibility to make sure that your son is educated in an equitable manner, is educated in a thorough manner, in a both qualitative and quantitative manner. All those things and all those measures are the responsibility of me as the school leader. And so while I understand your frustration, I receive that, and I want to first and foremost apologize for you feeling that way.
Yep.
Second, I want to continue to walk you through what this opportunity looks like so that we can also bring you on as a stakeholder on our parent advisory committee so that we can ensure that these processes and these failed opportunities never happen to another parent. So I want to
Mm-hmm.
invite you to be a part of the principal advisory committee as well as our parent advisory committee so that we can ensure that these things are not happening. What I can say, and I want to acknowledge, is that this pandemic has affected the most at risk and the most at need people, or in need people. And so sometimes we think about our students who are simply not attending, or our students who are having a hard time, but we are not thinking about our students who are in homeless shelters, or our students who have IEPs, or who are English language learners. This opportunity has truly been one that has been the most vanilla teaching experience that we could have provided as well. And even in the midst of offering a very general instructional process, we still fell short of the most in need students. One of the things that I want to consider thinking about is while we know and we are aware that IEPs are for instruction or in person instruction, and these are ideas and concepts and strategies that we want to have for our students with these needs, like your son in mathematics. But what we do know and what we must make sure that we make adjustments for is what do we do with IEPs and the articulation of minutes that cannot be accommodated in a virtual or hybrid space. So one of the things that we've come up with is a fluid learning model. And what that now thinks about is because we know that there is guidance around the amount of time that our teachers are spending um, in virtual instruction, which literally cuts our classes in half. And so, for example, if your son is guaranteed 400 minutes of math support each week, and our teachers are teaching 50 minutes a day, then we must think about how those IEPs must be adjusted to meet the virtual opportunity to support him. And so, what that may now look like is a far less amount of engagement time in mathematics for our students. But it is important that we articulate that alignment and how we can make sure that we make adjustments, not only with me in the virtual space, but also what are those independent opportunities that I can provide a student with an IEP to feel success and to feel accomplishments and to set goals and do all those things. But I think the important piece of that is understanding the fluidity of that opportunity and that experience. Never do we want to make sure that we want to articulate that because we are not in person, that IEPs can't be met. Because we aren't in person, we have an opportunity to far exceed the experience and the opportunities that are written out and spelled out in the IEP. And so this is now an opportunity to really start thinking about how do we empower you as a parent? How do we empower our student who has these certain academic goals and create these benchmarks and opportunities for check-in personally? How do we empower our educators to make sure that they are comfortable? Because the last thing that we will want is to lose the most important person who's impacting that student's life, and that is the teacher. And so, how do we empower him or her to make sure that because we did not adhere to something or because there was a mistake and we did not fully meet the needs at this moment, that we can continue to build you up to make you even better to make those connections with him in the future, and that those opportunities and those miscues in any other instance or any other calamity or catastrophe, that those things are addressed as well. And I think preparedness is a huge piece of that, right? No one knew that Hurricane Katrina was coming. No one knew that the pandemic was coming. No one knew of the hurricane in the Northeast and all the power outage when that happened. And so we have to be able to say that now in this virtual 21st century world, what are the things that we are able to do to meet the needs of all students? How do we do things like providing hotspots with enough unlimited data so that this IEP means extended time means that we are simply watching a video together and simply unpacking this opportunity or this video, and we are simply watching a movie together and practicing what that articulation looks like. Or we are doing 24 challenges virtually, or we are doing virtual quiz bowls, and we are meeting all the needs and accommodations based on that skill level. And so those are the things that we have to think about if we are saying that state testing is coming, benchmark testing is here, and that he must still meet certain needs and criteria and guidelines. But how do we build up that capacity? Do we want to say, if I offer to someone a parachute opportunity and that parachute deployed 8 out of 10 times, and that's 80% good. Or if we said that we asked someone to deploy his parachute and the first time he didn't get it, the second time he didn't get it, the third time he didn't get it, but as he got to the fourth, fifth, sixth, and to the 10th time, and every time thereafter he was able to master that, then are we going to acknowledge our students and teach them that there are opportunities that when you get it, we want you to have it long term and that it is a sustainable opportunity. And so I just want everyone to understand that this virtual space is simply an opportunity, it's truly an opportunity for us to move far beyond the norms, far beyond the experiences that we've once provided, and truly give our kids an opportunity to say that within these guidelines or the the unmitigated walls that are the internet and the in our virtual community, that there is so much more that we can do in far less time. And this is where we want to start to make sure that we make these connections with every student as well.
I love it. So, Terrence, it's really clear that um, one, thank you for taking us through like what that conversation could
Mm,
literally sound like with a parent, which is so often something that principals do not have accessibility to. They don't know who to turn to or where to go to just receive thought partnership, right? And receive support around it. And so I really appreciate you walking us through what that actually sounds like. And I want to also name that I really also appreciate and I want people to take this away with them are the words that you strategically, you probably use these words all the time, but they actually go a really long way. You use words like we, you use words like opportunity, right? Your whole demeanor was calm, right? It wasn't abrasive. It wasn't like trying to cut them off, right? Sometimes we let those emotions because a parent may or may not be that calm. Most parents, when it comes to their child, and the fact that their child has almost been forgotten for
hmm
6 months out of the school year, I don't think there's a lot of calm in that, right? So we
Right.
make some assumptions here that the emotional composure even of this parent is probably they're angry, right? Actually, it says that it's an irate parent,
Yeah.
very high energy, very unpleasant. And so the fact that you and those things are so key. I cannot allow us to for anyone watching this to miss those key components of just how you approach this situation with the parent. I also really want to highlight the fact that you already were prepared to propose something, right? And that doesn't mean that the parent is going to say yes. So for everybody out there who's watching Terrence right now, and being like, yeah, no, that ain't gonna work with that parent that I have, okay? Because we've all been there. We've worked with all different types of personalities. There are still some really key things that we can take away here, whether or not you would use those same exact strategies. The fluid learning model, you talked about, which with that fluid learning model, I heard you talk about decreasing the minutes
Hmm.
after knowing that for 6 months that child actually didn't receive any of the minutes.
Yes.
Okay, so talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the other side of that is after we apologize and we create these action plans, there has to be conversations, although our teacher left, with our school community at large to say that this is our expectation and this is how we will begin um, to evaluate or to examine that process. And so while we know that we have this parent here, this by and large can't seemingly be an isolated incident. So how do we make sure that when we have these students that I am joining in these Zoom calls as a participant to ensure that our students are attending? How are we ensuring that our students have the wherewithal to say that I know how to make this connection to my teacher or to the special education teacher as well? If my teacher is not, if I'm not logging on and my teacher is simply logging off, what are my opportunities for my paraprofessionals to say, hey, guys, this is your contact list of students, and these are the guys we want to make sure that we call each week if there is a missed opportunity on their IEP schedule, if
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
an opportunity in PE. And so, who are those people that make those connections
yep,
when the teacher day is very short? And so that part is important as well. But that seemingly isn't an isolated incident. If one parent has not had a kid receive services and that student is participating, I think we need to make sure we, take a very deep look, at our structure in
yep,
our class
yeah.
and see what's going on.
Definitely looking at our structure is going to be key here. I do want to share this information too. In a lot of cases, though, if a child's IEP minutes, and they're supposed to receive pull-out services, and those IEP minutes are not serviced, there are many instances where legally those services, you have to make up for those minutes that were lost. And like that is probably an L that the school just has to take. You have to figure out how to, because a parent could be like, wait, so not only did you not service my kid for 6 months, you're not even talking about making up how are we going to make up that time lost and how are we going to move forward. And so I think something to really name here intentionally is with those fluid minutes, there's and the child IP, there's some pullout time that didn't happen that needs to happen legally, right? And so I would also include that in the plan as well, right? Whether it's however many minutes and that whatever that plan is to compensate for the minutes lost, I would also say that it cannot burn out that child mentally or emotionally. I mean, there's more that the school has to do in this case, right? Like
Mhm.
as a principal, you are going to have to be open to finding creative ways to compensate for that. And you're also thinking about, like you said, Terrence, to your point, okay, let's really talk about the realities and the opportunities that hybrid or virtual world is now bringing up and how this can look different. That conversation is absolutely critical. And if we don't have that conversation, then you're going to be back in in square one. Uh,
Absolutely.
the principal advisory committee, you mentioned that. Can you share a little bit about what that is? That was a really cool point
Yeah,
that you brought up.
absolutely. So I've been here in Cleveland for 5 years. It is a largely public school district with a few sprinkled charters that are under our district's umbrella. Prior to coming here, I was in New Orleans, which the public school system was literally about 95 to 98% charter with a few public schools. And then prior to that, I was in Atlanta um, in a just a completely public school district. Non-union in Atlanta. New Orleans was right to work, all charters, and then Cleveland public, but high union. And so the things that I've learned from that charter is that as we are developing and thinking about charters, we are thinking about the people who support the school itself and who support the principal
Yeah.
or the principal accountable. And so those are things that I have brought into our school here. The board is the board, and so while they aren't doing any funding for the school, or they aren't my bosses, so to speak, but they are advisors, and they were selected
Mm,
by myself to truly thinking about how do we who holds me accountable. And so we oftentimes think about the area superintendents and the CEOs of large districts, and we have to be aware that by no stretch could we imagine that those people can support 15 different principles in a
yeah.
very authentic way. And so this allows us to really think about from parents to community partners to business partners and business leaders that are in the community. These are people who truly, we bring issues and concerns to, and we're able to unpack that fully. And so it allows me to get that charter, more private, intimate feel while being in a very small,
It's
albeit public
powerful.
school. So, so that is a huge, huge and invaluable asset that I think that we try to
Yeah.
bring here.
I love that you invited this parent to join that and to have a voice there, right? And they may or may not be open to it, but the fact that, you're literally creating space to invite them into your space as opposed to something that many schools often do, whether they notice it or not, they push out parents, right? The difficult parents are the ones who voice opinions and all of that. And so it's really about saying, hey, actually, this parent has a voice. Let's find creative ways to leverage their strengths and their insight and their perspective. Because at the end of the day, their perspective does matter. And
Absolutely.
so I really appreciate you bringing that up, Terrence. And so just going back to high level, the first conversation is going to happen with the principal. All right. I mean, excuse me,
Mhm.
with the parent, between the principal and the parent. From there, where do we go next?
Oh, so from there we're going straight into staff meetings, and so in thinking about that staff meeting and what we are doing for all children, this is the opportunity for me to be reflective before we come into this meeting. So, what are the strategies? What does the schedule look like? Not only the master schedule, but the very intimacies of the schedule for our students with IEPs and how those minutes are being addressed and supported. And so, it has to be an opportunity where now we share with our entire staff body that this is our schedule, but now let's look at how we are servicing every single student, right? So I think that every single student can still be have a strategic school support plan or a SST. Every student can have an independent opportunity to think about how they can grow in this work. And so I think that we have to now look at the schedule at large and think about the very small nuances in which we support all of our students. And then we have to have educators to name that. So for this student, what are we specifically doing for Terrence, who has not had his IEP minutes supported, but also he has these not only math, but he also has some reading opportunities here. So when in our schedule are we going to support those minutes? How are we going to support these skills? And then how do we think about in future planning we continue to support as well? But I think it has to be brought to the staff as an opportunity to say that this is an aha moment, more so that this is a directive. We can share the schedule, we can look at it, we can ask questions about, hey, where does Terrence get his math? I was looking at his IEP. Where does his math? And we have people to unpack that. And when we discover things, and when we feel like we are the authors of our own opportunities to grow in, or we see it personally, then and only then are we able to say that these are the steps that I want to take to make those adjustments. Everyone will know that the teacher is no longer available. And so, in me thinking about, what do we do next? There has to be an opportunity for educators to see those flaws and to see those gaps, and to really start thinking about that. This is where I'm seeing he hasn't been serviced. But also, before we start talking, or before we end with just talking about Terrence, I also got Johnny, Mike, and Crystal, who also, I need to make some adjustments to. And so as we
Right.
identify one, and we start thinking about what that looks like, we begin to identify all. And so that's important. From there, we start to build out a schedule on some collaborative class pop-ins so we can support one another. So we can do some peer-to-peer learning walks. Who wants to come in and find opportunities to support students who have math needs? And as we are going in literally to a class of small group students to get math support, where
Hmm.
Terrence is, we're all in there waiting as this educator prepares to
So,
teach.
Terrence, let me plug in here for a moment.
Mhm.
So are you referring to like this as a short-term goal, as a long-term goal? How immediately would you start these learning walks? Because my thought is that, um, you know, I heard you say we got to meet with the teachers. We got to meet. I love the idea of we have to get them to look at the students in front of them, right? To do the self-reflective work themselves. Who do I have on this list? Who is in my class and who actually has an IEP? And how am I servicing or not servicing those students and getting them to do that work and then
Mhm.
figuring out how does this look? I would add to that, even before that, I would even look at my SPED department, my special education department. Like,
Absolutely.
who is my team? Who
Mm.
is over the department? Who is progress monitoring? Like, who is responsible for the meetings, the compliance meetings? We're
Mhm.
supposed to have, because it could be that actually there are some protocols and stuff missing that we're trying to put on teachers that our special education department should be looking at. And if I don't have the personnel to help my school with that, I would really encourage folks to look externally. There are special education consultants. Jenny Bard, who is one of them, right? Shout
Yeah.
out to Jenny. She actually commented on our Instagram post as well. But people who really understand the ins and outs, who could create a very robust, efficient way to ensure that all students structurally and routinely needs are met. And then like, I would definitely hand it off to teachers. But back to the learning loss question, like how soon would you start that? Is that something pretty immediate? Is that something more in the long
Um,
term? Interested to hear a little bit more about that.
I think in the virtual space, there's an opportunity to have a learning walk, which could be during a faculty meeting, right? So there are opportunities that because our lessons are recorded and because they belong to the district, these are great things. And I like that you talked about who are those support staff and those tiers. What I appreciate about the immediacy of a learning walk is that we can identify where we need to place people, right? So if this person has 8 students and 2 of them are having very difficult experiences with this math fluency, we
Yeah.
can identify, oh, wow, we have, our person, our paraprofessional for this level of students who can fill this gap right away. And so, and those are things that I think about as it relates to discovery. I think
Mm-hmm.
about acknowledging the things that we see and then being able to close gaps based on what we see. And so I think for me, it makes reminds me of a doctoral degree, right? So we have a PhD and an ED. The PhD is your theory and the philosophy of these things, and the ED is the practical side of this. And so we have, these opportunities for me is how do we see it? And from us seeing it, how do we then find opportunities to support it?
Yeah.
Toward,
Yeah.
those are that has kind of been a very large practice of mine is being able to see it and adjust, and as we are continuing to move and grow, because we know that there's no time to stop the ship and to build it, in the harbor. But as we are sailing, we have to make those repairs and adjustments as we are continuing our journey. And so that's an important aspect for me around seeing it. I don't want to say repairing it, but adjusting to it and becoming flexible to it, and then coming back to it and seeing it again and continuing, those
Yep.
moments.
Yep.
So,
Love it, love it. Great points. I hope y'all are taking notes. Make sure that you're sharing this with people. You can share this literally YouTubing right now. I want to read Jenny Barr's comment that she put on. It was actually on Instagram, but she said as an approach to this, as a what should this principal do is offer compensatory ed, which is what we spoke about, like making sure that you've compensated for the minutes that are lost because that's what the court would have you do. And then offer a really thoughtful apology. That's what we did. Anyhow, right, that's what we did. She said in the long term, how does this all get tracked? Exactly what we're talking about. I love the approach that you're taking here. Is, hey, let's actually do this collaboratively, particularly when you may not have like a robust sped department. I really like that she said here, sped teachers share their caseload schedules with a manager or service documented might be time for an audit. So you're getting at unpacking all of that
Hmm.
collaboratively with your teachers, right? And discovering these things. And so
Yes.
that, and then at the same time, what that is doing, it is also building consensus in your staff. Like people are getting bought into the process of, oh wow, I actually didn't recognize that this was a case here. Oh wow, like this
Hmm.
is a teacher that I could use. Can you come into my time? So that conversation, when you also allow teachers and trust teachers to do the work, to bring their expertise to the table, the conversation really shifts as well. And it's not like just compliance. Compliance is absolutely critical here. But there's another element that's added here where it's like not just compliance, but also there's a larger and deeper investment.
Hmm.
Um, she also mentioned an audit. So it would be, I consider an audit in here as well, probably externally again with someone that is an expert in this area. What do you think
Yeah,
about that?
I agree. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
Um,
that gets to the point where you were speaking about in the very beginning around accountability measures. Like what should we
mhm.
be looking at? All of those things. Is there anything else that you would say is important in this process?
No, I agree, but I like that. I like that idea that you lifted from Jenny's perspective is, that learning walk could be where our special education support people are just simply visiting these classes of students who have been identified, which, to your point, definitely eases the stress of, you know, our teachers open to learning walks, but yeah, these are the people who support this group of students, and so it becomes
Yeah.
more intentional as well. So I'm glad that you.
Right. Because you could also have teachers who are like, particularly in this season, like I am stretched thin. I don't know that I can take anything else on,
Right.
and so the more that we can mitigate how much auditing they have to do, right, and put a team on that, I think that's also really helpful. But I do like, hey, this is who you have. How do we creatively serve our kids during this time? How is the teacher serving this child, etc. Same thing, and I want to also name here, we're not just talking about special education students.
True.
Really happens for our English language learners.
Mhm.
The thing is that lawsuits really, we're not hearing a whole lot of lawsuits from English language learners. And so what is happening a lot that we're not talking about is the fact that we're really not following even plans that our English language learners legally we are required to give them, and we're not. And parents don't know their rights. Parents
Right.
don't know what's expected. And so we really have to do better. And if oftentimes people don't know how exactly do we serve them, where are we missing, what do we need to enhance our programming for our ELL population. Engage your teachers in it, right? Like internally, look at your budget and figure out you get federal programming, federal money from the government to be able to allot to do this type of work with ELL learners. So I just want to put that out there as well. Is there anything else that we should be thinking about? Because we talked about the structures, we talked about the audit, what needs to happen. Because I think
Um,
the deeper rooted issue, and you got to it before, was more than likely this is happening with one person, it's
yes.
probably happening with other people. Deeper
Hmm.
issue, audit, look at your systems, protocols, your systems. What do you think? You want to say
Yeah, I
something?
think. Yeah, I think that the one thing that we didn't talk about was that media threat that they talked about.
Yeah.
Um, and we know how they can, swarm and storm a building. So I think that it's important that we get out to that parent, but also that we articulate that to our district. You know what I mean? To whoever that public relations committee person is, to be able to spearhead that. And then I think at the school leader, you just have to be transparent, right? So we have not provided services. We have to share that and be open to that consequence, whether it is the financial compensation and the legal side of this thing. We have to be able to say that this is the mistake that we made and we own it. And sometimes we are fighting the fight just so that we aren't acknowledged as wrong or just to simply be winners in this case. And so, I think that if we are acknowledging it, we are very transparent to the fact, and we are conscious of how we move forward, is a huge, huge
Yeah.
opportunity.
With the media, one thing that I would add, and I like that, I appreciate that you did not go to the media first,
Right.
because the media is not your first concern right now. We are in the business of serving children. And so we have to check on our children and our parents first. Okay? The media is going to do whatever they want to say,
Right.
regardless. But you got to get your inside of the house cleaned up first. And so that's why,
Mhm.
exactly why Terrence said, we're going straight to the parent, the student, then internally to our teachers. I would also add district public relations person, or my superintendent, my boss, whoever's about to, who may potentially catch this on the media, public relations, heads up, this is what's happening. I would also not put a lot, the less is more. The
Mhm.
less that you tell the media, the better it is, right?
Yeah.
Like a statement of, here is
Mhm.
our belief. My statement would be around our belief, and we
Yeah.
are working to ensure that every child is served in our community. And if we have dropped a ball, it is my life's mission, right? So this was if the camera pulled up to my school, right? Like it's my life's mission to ensure that we are serving every kid, and it really is. Like at the end of the day, it falls on us as principals, and many people don't see that. Many people think that. I don't know about your kids. Have you ever asked your students like, what do you think principal does all day? If we ask them, what would they say?
Oh man, I think that they would say I'm the coolest guy in the north. Yeah, I think that, and I think that they would talk about how fair and what I mean, and how
Yeah.
connected I am, and from PBIS to recess is a mandatory thing,
Hmm.
things that we decrease the stress in students, which then decreases the stresses that they place on
That's
teachers.
right. Yes.
You know, how do we incorporate technology? Like, hey, bring your, phones, or you can use phones not to call, but you can use technology during lunch period. Like, you can go to the fitness room. We created a fitness center, and so,
That's
we try
awesome.
to
Yeah,
create those
I saw
spaces
your
where,
your Instagram stuff. And I think you have some stuff there in the fitness room. You got some of your kids there, so that's amazing. Terrence, you're doing
absolutely,
some incredible work, and I just want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day right before a little vacay, a little extended weekend to be
absolutely.
on our live leadership chat here on our channel. I want to give you an opportunity, Terrence, to tell us where we can find the book called Letters to Our Fathers. Where can we find your book? Where can we follow you, your school, and the work that you do?
Absolutely. So our book is a PDF. So it's in a collection. We just simply share it out. But I have a funny thing. I have a group of friends from college, from Morehouse. We've all grabbed some of our favorite books, put them in PDFs, and created a PDF file that we just simply share and read amongst each other. But it is just a PDF, so we are open to sharing it. I do have a unibind, so I do print them and drop them in book covers that we have custom created. So they can always reach out to me at Terrence Mitchell on Instagram, or my email is Terrence Mitchell OPPF at gmail.com. Our school is Valley View Boys Leadership CLE on Instagram as well. And so we're easy to find. We're always where the action resides. That's where we are. So
I love it. Love it. Love it. Well, you all make sure you go follow him. You heard it from him himself, Terrence Mitchell. The book, it sounds like there's no cost associated. Do you guys take donations? It'd be nice if people can also drop some donations in there as
oh,
well, y'all.
absolutely, absolutely. So
Absolutely.
we do have
Okay.
it's on our Instagram. So we do have a mailing address as well, and so we are always, thinking about how we pour into our guys and gifts and PBIS and Students of the Month. And so we have many,
That's so
many
good.
contributors who want to pour into our
All
guys.
right,
So
you all. So you already know. Go ahead and send that check. Write that check, cut the check, and
cut it.
send it to Terrence's school. Terrence, you're
Thank you.
amazing. Thank you so much for sharing space. You all be blessed. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, go subscribe to our channel and share this video with your network. This video is going to not only help principals, it's going to help teachers, it's going to help district folks, and it's also going to help parents who are like, wait a second, maybe I'm in this situation and maybe these are some ways that I can go and advocate for my child who is a special needs child, or perhaps an English language learner. These things is how we empower one another. So thank you again, everyone, and we will see you